All right, breezing along through this terrific Tuesday. You're watching Liquid Lunch. I'm John Tobacco. It's quarter past the top of the hour, 1 Eastern, and we are bringing you everything you need to know about what's going on in this country, not from talking heads, not from these Yaleys and these people that get paid to just spew out the party line. Real people who are involved in real grassroots efforts, people who know where the rubber meets the road and are putting and deploying resources into getting good people into government, which is a difficult task, to say the least. And joining us today is Cliff Maloney, Jr. Cliff, you're the president of the Young Americans for Liberty. You're in studio today with us, but you're up here in New York from Texas. And tell us a little bit about the Young Americans for Liberty and what your guys' mission is.
Yeah, well, John, thanks for having us. Young Americans for Liberty, we work with college students throughout the country, and the idea is that we're trying to recruit people who really believe in a constitutional government. So a lot of college students on campus, you know, they're getting this message of socialism and that government's the answer to pretty much every single problem. And we try to provide a different solution to our problems, one that says that we the people, through the market, as individuals, we can create these solutions. So we recruit these students, we get them excited about these principles of free markets and civil liberties, and then we deploy them. We find races around the country where people are aligned candidates, and we stick to door knocking. We think that is how we can have the biggest bang for our buck, the biggest impact, and it's been a fun ride doing what we're doing.
I have spent some time in my life around the political circles. I was the vice chairman of the New York State Reform Party. I was vice chairman of my local chapter of the New York State Independence Party, ran for city council, ran for Congress, and I think no matter how you slice it, the retail politics is probably the best place to start, and that's with knocking on people's doors with an educated person who can explain what the candidate's about, and I think that's a noble effort to start with the door knocking. And not only is it teaching kids in college retail politics, but it's actually engaging them with their communities.
Yeah, and the people that we endorse, look, we don't specifically pick a party. We say, and I think you appreciate this, as somebody independent-minded, we endorse based on loyalty to principle, not loyalty to party. So we try to find candidates that have kind of that independent streak, and they have a different idea of what the role of government is. And look, a lot of those times that means these are grassroots races. And if you're a grassroots, you've been involved with some of the parties that you've got to rely on the grassroots. When you're a grassroots candidate, you can't outspend a lot of the big money that comes in. So that retail politics you're talking about, going out, doing the grunt work of talking to people and engaging them, you know, that's where we think we can actually make a difference.
He doesn't know that I was a grassroots candidate who actually outspent Bloomberg.
There were some interesting situations in that race. But Cliff, given your experiences on college campus, I am curious about what the situation is with respect to free speech on college campuses. We've heard a lot about conservative students in some instances being penalized by professors, by administrators, or other members of the student body because they may have views that are a little bit different from where a lot of, especially at big colleges like NYU and the Ivy League schools, where a lot of the student body may be. Have you seen specific instances of backlash against conservative students?
Where do I start? So let me break down campus by saying I think there's two distinct experiences a college student goes through. The first is the classroom. Now, the left, in my opinion, has a stranglehold on the classroom experience, right? The actual curriculum, what they're learning, what you're experiencing. Like I said, government's the answer to everything, and socialism is seen, sadly, in a positive light. But the other half of it is the on-campus experience, right? So when you join organizations or speakers come to campus, and there's kind of this ability to engage students because it's supposed to be a place where they're talking through ideas.
Sure.
You're trying to develop what it is that are your beliefs and what are the solutions to better the country. That space is where you now see a war that's been developing, I'd say, over the last 6 years between the left and the right and pretty much everyone in between, where the left is saying, we want to shut everyone down that disagrees with us. And so you see this across the country where they're now labeling pretty much anything they disagree with as hate speech. And conservatives, libertarians, independents that are pushing back on this one-size-fits-all government, they have been saying, listen, it's biased, it's corrupt, they're getting the same message, but no one for free speech campaign where we're actually going after what the college bureaucrats are using to shut down the speakers or to say, hey, these groups can't be recognized and it's obviously biased which groups are recognizing versus not recognizing. And so we're going after the codes. And I'm happy to say, I mean, the student code of conduct is where you will find, because it's what they use as their excuse. They'll say, oh, well, we can't have this speaker because it violates this code of conduct, or we can't allow this organization because our code says we can't have two similar organizations.
But they could have these people dressed in all black with bandanas over their face running around the campuses, and that's not a problem.
Yeah, and the nice thing for us is once you remove the code and you remove the excuse that they use to shut down a speaker that might not be aligned with the leftist viewpoint, they don't have the excuse anymore. And we've gone to litigation. We've won 51 different cases against universities across the country. Now, sometimes a threatening letter is all you need, but we've gone to court with a lot of these folks, and that's the only way they're going to listen.
So how are you guys funded?
Grassroots supporters across the country.
So you have a website, or you have a bunch of websites where people can send you donations and support the effort?
YALiberty.org. There are three things we're always looking for. One, students or young people want to get involved. Two, if you got a candidate you think we should be looking at to endorse and knock doors for. And three, funds. So YALiberty.org, there's three ways to get involved.
So as you know, we always bring you the guests who know where the rubber meets the road. We're always trying to talk to purple people. The Young Americans for Liberty are not a ideological organization, Republican, Democrat. They're looking for people who are sticking to their principles, not parties. So go to YALiberty.org, check it out, educate yourself, see if it's the type of organization you want to help out, because if there's anything that we have to keep alive in our government, as we see the left and the progressives continue to try to deteriorate us into a socialist society, we need grassroots activism, because the machine can't stop the grassroots. So I hope you guys keep up the good work. I hope you guys can continue to sue some of these universities, and hopefully...
Cliff, before you run, I want to get your take on one of the Democratic presidential candidates that has been pretty interesting, and she wasn't really on my radar screen before she ran for president, but that's Marianne Williamson. She has a plan for the creation of a Department of Peace. Now we have a Department of Defense. What's the matter with the Department of Peace?
Yeah, well, the reason I'm so fascinated by this is because I'm always looking for issues that Democrats for years kind of owned, and then quietly they move away from. I mean, the left, the anti-war Democrat wing of the party, to me, has just disappeared.
Well, it's about 1%. It's the Tulsi Gabbard wing of the Democratic Party.
Right, and I mean, to me, they've done this because for political reasons. I mean, Trump is running on, he's had this America First foreign policy, something I'm very supportive of. Bring the troops home. Let's take care of this country. But it's funny to me to see some of these, let's say, third or fourth tier candidates trying to find wedge issues to get themselves in the limelight against the big guns. But I actually think it's a good issue for her, because all these other folks for years have been preaching how they're the peace candidates.
Yeah.
Then Obama got in, he bombed 7 countries. His rhetoric on supporting the troops was horrible, and it was kind of all this wishy-washy stuff. So I think it's an interesting situation to see these bottom-tier candidates coming after him, but it's a good wedge issue, because the anti-war left, to me, has just disappeared.
Yeah, you're right about that.
No doubt about it. And I'm Marianne Williamson. Newsmax and Liquid Lunch are here for you. We want to hear your views on the Department of Peace. You may not be the first presidential candidate, because yesterday we had Jeff Boss, who's also running in the Democratic primary. But we still want you, Marianne Williamson, down here to talk about the Department of Peace. I think it would be wonderful. Not nearly as wonderful as having the president of Young Americans for Liberty. Go to YALiberty.org. Check them out. Educate yourself, and see if you have a couple extra bucks to send their way so they can keep doing all this grassroots work. Cliff, I want to thank you very much for joining us. Anything you guys are doing, reach out to Frankie and I. We'll help you promote it if we can. And if you come across any universities that want an independent TV show and they'll accept us, we're happy to do our show from there too. But
thanks, guys.
Cliff, thank you very much. Thank you for watching. You stay right there. We'll be back in just 2 minutes.